Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
Your planet is now marked for death.
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps is now streaming on Disney+.
We will protect you.
As a family.
Light him up, Johnny!
Marvel's first family is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is fantastic.
And critics say it's one of the best superhero movies of all time.
Oh!
Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG-13.
What time is it, Ben? It's clobber time!
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. No little chuckle intro there, Kieran, because you didn't have to count me in, because we went straight off the back of the last pod into this one, which is an interview. I could ask you what you've been doing in the meantime, but I've been watching you on screen, so I know what you've been doing. You know? I noticed Finley seemed quite restless during this interview.
Yes, he has, yes.
Bless him. Is he all right?
Yeah, he's cleaning his toes. We went out for a long walk this morning and he got a little bit of mud between his toes, so he's busy getting rid of the detritus.
I got the hump the other day because we had a visitor who said that Smudge's toes were the biggest toes she'd ever seen on a cat. As far as and then Ali, shockingly, seemed to back that up and go, yeah, she has got big toes. I think she has perfectly normal sized toes. She does like to get them clean, though. I have to say that.
Yes.
Yes. Bizarrely, when we first got her, the elderly grandmother of the woman, we got her from a cat's rescue place, and the elderly grandmother went, "Oh no, don't take that one because black and white kittens don't like washing themselves. Black and white kittens." So I did start to get into a discussion about they don't know they're black and white. Where Ali dragged me away. Come on, play with the new kitten and its giant toes. Now, our interview today, Kieran, is with Spencer Gore, who for the past 14 months or so has been the new owner and chairman of Chelmsford City. It's been a period of great success for them off the pitch, on the pitch, I was to say, but a period of great ambition off it. And we wanted to catch up with Spencer about his plans for the club and about the financial aspects of a man coming in from a completely different business to run his hometown club. And this is what Spencer had to say. Spencer, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure to talk to the owner of a very successful club. Before we get on to that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before you got into football.
Hi, Kevin. So my background, I grew up in Chelmsford in Essex. Little bit of a dropout in terms of I left school after a year of A levels, didn't like them. Worked for a bit, then went to college, didn't do so well there. Then went to university, failed my second year, left after 4 years without a degree. So didn't have a great track record to start with, but worked pretty bloody hard to get myself to a position where I was able to set up a business in 2007, height of the financial crisis. The logic being it's only going to get easier. I'm still waiting for that. And then, again, I sort of, it didn't work out with that business. That's when I first started realizing that values were important and you had to be aligned with people. So I set up the European Medical Journal in 2012. And I've been doing that ever since, expand that every single year. We now have the American Medical Journal that we launched last year. We've got EMJ Learnings out in the Netherlands. Probably close to 100 staff working there. We've won the Queen's Award, the Times 100 Fastest Growing Businesses, the FT 1,000 fastest growing businesses in Europe. So it's all been very busy, but very successful so far, touch wood.
You're a local boy, but I'm interested in why you decided you wanted to buy your local club. And is it true you tried to buy the club 3 years ago initially?
First answer is, why did I buy my local club? So going back to 2012 when I set European Medical Journal up, I was having a conversation with a business coach, and long story short, I told him that my goal, we've spoken about big, hairy, audacious goal. My goal was to buy a football club. So we decided that EMJ would be the vehicle to allow me to do that. So if I worked really hard on that business, that would provide the money that could go and buy a football club. And the question I was asked was, would it be Liverpool? As you can see, I've got a few Liverpool memorabilia behind me. My family grew up in Liverpool, so I'm a big Liverpool fan. And I said, no, I can't take them any higher, really. You might not nick them up 1 or 2 league positions, depending on the year, but I'm only going to make them worse. So I'd rather steer clear of that. Whereas I always thought there was a huge opportunity for Chelmsford. It's when I set my first business up in 2007, I did some research. I had 3 months garden leave, so I went and helped out the football club just as a volunteer, and I was helping with the commercial team. And I did some research, and if you rank teams on population, Chelmsford's a championship size team. So I knew the footprint was there. I knew there was enough people to make it successful, and it's a fairly affluent area, fast growing area, and my local team. So I was like, right, that's the goal for me. How high can we get them? Yeah, they should be way higher than they are. They're massively underperforming, in my opinion. So let's try and do that.
So that's interesting then. So it was a business and data-based decision rather than emotional.
No, I think the emotion was I always wanted to own a football club.
Right.
The business and data was that let's look at one where we can really improve it. Chelmsford is my local team, so it was always an obvious one. And I'm an all or nothing sort of person, so I had the opportunity to get involved with other clubs. It was something that I knew that if I got involved with, I'd be there day in, day out. And so I wanted it to be local. So Chelmsford obviously ticked that box. I had some brief conversations with Southend. I spoke to the owner of Colchester United. I was asked if I wanted to invest in Eastbourne Borough. A friend of mine bought them a few years ago. But I'd been involved with Chelmsford on and off. I used to go and watch them occasionally. I'm not going to pretend I was some super fan, but I used to go and watch them occasionally as a kid. I went and watched them when we were out of Chelmsford, ground sharing at Billericay. As I say, I got helped out down there in 2007 when I set up my first business. And in 2012, I decided I wanted to buy them. And so I had that 13-year goal that I've been working towards, or 12 years when I actually bought them. And in COVID, they were struggling financially they'd struggled financially for a long time, but they were particularly struggling during COVID. So I sponsored them. And I was asked if I wanted to join the board. And I'd been on the board a couple of times before, and I wasn't necessarily fully aligned with the in fact, I wasn't aligned at all with the owners of the club at that time. So I said no, but I asked if they'd be interested in selling the club. So I think 2001, they agreed to sell me the club. And after about 3 months, I still hadn't had a price for it, which makes it quite hard to buy. So sort of gave up on that, set up a business in America and set up a business in the Netherlands, thinking I was never going to buy this football club. And then on May the 11th, 2024, I got a text at 7:45 in the morning. Not that I remember it. I was sitting in a car park at the driving range because my son was having a golf lesson, and I got this text from the chairman saying, "I'm resigning as chairman, and therefore John's going to sell the club. Are you still interested?" And I was like, "That's bad timing. I've just set up 2 new businesses. I'm a bit stretched." But you don't sort of choose when you buy a football club; it chooses you. So I said yes. And it was like nothing I've ever known. I had lunch with Barry Hearn last week, and he said to me, "I still dine out on your story. There's only 2 people I know that have bought a football club without due diligence, you and Mike Ashley." And he said he had about 35 million quid worth of debt. What was yours? I was like, well, it's not quite that bad. But yeah, we had no due diligence whatsoever going through the process. I didn't see any bank accounts. I didn't see anything. I had to take their word. And I'll be honest, I didn't trust them because they'd lied to me before. And it got to the point where I pulled out the deal 2 or 3 times because they just wouldn't give me anything. And then I was in Rome on a family holiday. We'd gone away for a weekend. I pulled out the deal on the Wednesday and said, "Look, if you haven't given me due diligence by the Wednesday, I'm not doing it." On the Thursday, they messaged me and said, "We're not going to sell to you." I was like, "But I've already pulled out the deal." So it was a bit like a kid in the playground, Yeah. And I had a long conversation with Dan Watkins, who owns 40% of the club.
Yeah.
And long story short, that I think basically if I hadn't bought it, the club would have gone bust. Right. They couldn't afford to pay the wages. They had loads of debt. It would have put all the onus on Dan to run the club on his own, and he lives out in Hong Kong because he got promoted to become the CEO of JP Morgan not long after he started investing in the club. So we went through and sort of said, what's the worst case scenario? And I said, well, there could be millions of pounds worth of debt we don't know about. And we worked out that there couldn't really be that much debt because there was no assets to have borrowed that much money. And we figured that they told us there was $250,000. Worst case, it could be $1 million, we thought. And it was sort of somewhere in the middle of that, roughly, probably about $750,000, I guess, in total with various bits and bobs. But we gambled, or I gambled, I should say. I had to pay June's payroll because they didn't have the money for that, and then I bought the club. Sorry, July's payroll. I bought the club at the end of July, start of August.
That's absolutely fascinating, Spencer. That idea of you not knowing what you were buying, what level of debt you could be getting yourself into. But what's even more fascinating was watching Kieran's face while you told that story. When you started off, he was laughing about you having lunch with Barry Hearn. Good luck getting a word in during the first course and the main course. But when you started talking about you weren't able to do due diligence, Kieran was like a cartoon. It's the look of dismay on Kieran's face. I mean, I have no head for business at all, but it strikes me that I wouldn't get involved in anything like that. I mean, that's a big decision to make, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the heart versus the head, isn't it? Any other business, I wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole. I was taking legal advice. Obviously, good firm of solicitors advising me, and their advice to me was run a mile.
Wow.
So there was basically 3 people thought I should do the deal, and everyone else thought I was crazy. And the 3 people were me, Dan Watkins, and the guy trying to sell it to me.
Fair enough.
And it's one of those things that was sort of, there was no logical, you couldn't explain it. I remember going up to the start of the first day of training back at pre-season, and I still was going through the negotiations, and they hadn't given me any due diligence, and the chairman having a go at me in front of all the media team that were filming the first day of training, for me causing the club to be in such a state that they didn't know if they could pay the players because I hadn't bought the club yet. And I was like, you haven't given me any due diligence. All you've got to do is give me that and I'll buy the club. And he was having a go at me for not doing it. I was like, what planet are you living on? But that's football. You do things, you do things that you wouldn't normally do in business. But, it's a crazy world.
Normally at this stage of the interview, Spencer, I would ask you about your aspirations for the club, but as we've already ascertained, you don't have aspirations. You have BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. So tell me about what your big, hairy, audacious goals are for Chelmsford.
So I learned that off. It's a phrase off Ben Hunt Davis, who won Olympic gold in the rowing. He's got this philosophy or book, and he wrote a book about it called "Will It Make the Boat Go Faster?" And he talks about BHAGs and it's. What's that really huge, ridiculous goal that gets you excited, gets you out of bed in the morning? Work out what that is, and then try and reverse engineer it. Work backwards to where you are today. And so I've done this for a long time now with my business, and I set ridiculous targets. And with my business in the EMJ, I've run for 13 years. I think I've only ever hit an annual target twice because we set such big, ridiculous goals. But it's the whole shoot for the moon, you hit the stars, or whichever way around it is. If you set that crazy goal, at least you're going to get a lot closer than if you don't set that goal. So we've set the goal was to be in the Premier League by 2038. So that's the centenary year. So it seemed like a nice, rather than having a 10-year goal, it was a nice 13-year target. We like to do things differently. And it's like, well, what's the best we can do with this club? Well, the best is to be top of the Premier League. You can't get better than that in this country. So why would we have aspirations to do any less than that? It doesn't mean we're going to get there. it doesn't mean we're going to get anywhere near there, but that's what we're aiming to be, is the best version of ourselves that we can be. And then let's work backwards and see where we can be in certain stages. So let's be in the Premier League by 2038. Let's be in the Football League in 5 years from today. And let's be in the National League in 2 years. So they're the goals we've set. So we work backwards and we measure it. So for this year, we've set some goals in terms of revenue, in terms of the crowd size that we want to get to, and in terms of points in the league. And historically, if you get 80 points in the National League South, you're going to be in the playoffs, and if you get 100 points, you're going to win the league. That doesn't mean you will do it, but at least you can control those things. If Hornchurch at the moment, their points per game is it gets them to about 120 points. If someone else does that, you can't control that. But if we still get to 100 points, we'll be in the playoffs. So that's how we've done it.
I'm really interested. I read an interview where you talked about that setting almost impossible goals. I'm interested to learn whether you think that can work in football, and also does that put any more pressure on staff, or do staff tend to buy into your optimism and your positive energy? Because you can understand how they've been working for a club for ages, and they kind of go, well, maybe we'll get promoted, but then somebody comes in and says we want to be top of the Premier League by 2038. That's kind of
let's not get carried away. I didn't say top of the Premier League. I said in the Premier League.
Oh, it's big.
Let's not set crazy goals.
I'm sorry. If I was Jeremy Paxman, I'd be resigning now. If this was the BBC, I'd be walking the plank for that terrible mistake. But does it? Does it motivate staff to buy into it, or in a way, do you want to put pressure on those staff who you think aren't up to the job? Then
I think it can work both ways, and it has worked both ways in my other business. I think for the right people, having really ambitious goals excites them. I think having the wrong people on board, it can be quite daunting. And I think even having the right people, it can be quite daunting at times. But nothing great's ever created in your comfort zone. We've been in this league, I think it's 18 years now. Someone said we're the most boring team in English football a little while ago. We've not had a relegation battle or a promotion fight for 18 years.
Wow.
So it's a case of, look, we can keep doing what we've always done, and we'll keep getting what we've always got, or we can try something a bit different. And I recruit on values. I don't recruit on skills. I think you can learn skills, but you'll never change your values. You've got your values and they're right for you. I've got my values and they're right for me. If they're aligned, we're probably going to do quite well together. And if they're not aligned, we definitely won't do well together. So it's all about having the right people on board that are excited by those crazy goals, that get really motivated by those crazy goals, that actually come to me and say, shouldn't we be looking to be top of the Premier League in 2038? And those sort of things. I'm like, that's a bit crazy. Let's not get carried away. So it's surrounding you. You become the average of the people you surround yourself by. And if you've got lots of people that are exciting and inspiring and motivating, it rubs off on you. So one of the first things I did when I came into the club was have a look at who we had. And we took a good few months to work out if they were the right people and if they needed to be trained in a different way, or whether they weren't going to be ever on board with what we were trying to do. And we made a few changes. We kept quite a few people. And we've got such an inspiring, motivating place to work now.
Feel free to go back and tell the staff that I said they should be top of the Premier League in 2023. Today we've changed.
That's written down now.
Yeah, we've changed the goals. Kevin Day says top of the Premier. Kieran always talks about the culture shock sometimes when someone comes in from a business that they've made successful into football, and they then discover that football is an entirely different business altogether. Have you found any of that? Or have you found that it's fairly easy to transfer your other business skills into running a football club?
I think there's a bit of both, to be honest. In terms of the actual business of football, we've tried to keep to what we know works. We've just literally last week signed off our annual accounts for the first year. We've grown revenue by 150%.
Wow.
We've turned a £390,000 loss into a £70,000 profit. And we've cleared £700,000 worth of debt. So running a football club as a business, it works. Where it gets challenging is you've got thousands of people telling you what to do and telling you you're right or wrong, or you need to do things differently. It's different in the fact that if I have a bad day in the office, I I don't get no points. I don't get 1 point, or if I've had a good day, I don't get 3. So there's definitely differences, and I think you have to be aware of that. But what I try and do is look at it as 2 different entities almost. There's the off the pitch, and we're having a little competition with the management team that we can be Football League ready before they can be football in the Football League. And so if I run the business as a business, that will give them the best opportunity to get the team promoted, because it means there's more money, there's the best facilities. Then it's down to them, and that's where it becomes a lot more emotional, and that's where the heart takes over from the head sometimes.
Some execs want Gen AI everywhere. Others think it's basically a shredder for intellectual property. And your people? Yeah, they're already using it. Okay, picture this. Someone pastes the Q4 strategy doc and client list into a free AI tool, and it's no longer yours. Harmonic Security warns people before they paste in sensitive data, so you can say yes to Gen AI and still protect what matters most. Visit harmonic.security before your crown jewels end up in a chatbot.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans, even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes, now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
Kieran, you were nodding away wisely then when Spencer was talking about the accounts. I presume you will know all about them, possibly before Spencer did, the way you work. But
he told me those figures.
I'm interested, Kieran, in Spencer's idea then, you get the business side ready before the football side, in a way, because that seems spectacularly sensible to me. You let the football side catch up with the business side rather than the other way around, rather than always reacting.
Well, if you create the correct framework for the football club, and that's all the boring stuff, then I think it can definitely work, in the sense that first of all, I absolutely agree with what Spencer's saying. You set the culture at the club, and culture will always trump strategy. So getting people to align with your goals. If you've got different people with different aims, then get out straight away. And I think from what Spencer was saying, that becoming a part owner, if you weren't in agreement with the old owners, then you're not going to change them. So it's either you don't join or they get out. I think you build anything from the foundations, and the foundations of a business are, you look at your revenue streams. I think the biggest issue with football is not its inability to grow the money coming in, it's his kamikaze approach to spending money, because you will have your coach coming to you in January or February saying, look, I know that we're eighth now. We, to get up to the playoffs, I've seen this lad, and he'll always start, but governor, I've seen this lad, and he wants a little bit more, and we might have to go and pay. We're not paid a transfer fee for God knows how many years, but it's only 30 grand or whatever it's going to be, and then you've got to have that discussion, which will be between your heart and your head. And I don't know whether you've seen Sunderland Till I Die, and the signing of Will Grigg. I think that is the perfect example of somebody that just gets swept away with the emotion, and whether you've got that Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder saying, Spencer, this really isn't a good idea, but that's when I think it really gets awkward, and you will find that increasingly common if Chelmsford City are successful and start to accelerate through the divisions.
I'll have about 4 texts from Angelo now saying he's spotted the best player we've ever seen before since we started this podcast. But that's his job, and his job is to give us the best chance of promotion. We've had this conversation quite a few times. I've said to him, you've got to keep coming with me with anything that's going to improve the club, and it's down to me to tell you whether you can have it or not. And we sat down at the start of the season, we set the budget, me and Dan, the other owner, we agreed what the budget was going to be, and we told Angelo, this is what you've got. How you spend that is entirely up to you. You can go and get 11 players with that budget, but don't come crying to me if you've got no subs. Or you can go and get 20 players. That's yours. And we went through and we created a little spreadsheet of each position and what we thought we'd spend. And every time we signed a player, it either went up or down, depending whether we got it over or under budget. So we knew what we had. And the only time we've gone past that was when we had everyone signed apart from one player. And I think we might talk about that later, but we were looking at a certain player, and it didn't happen. And we wanted to make a statement, and me and the other owner decided that we were prepared to put a little bit more in to make a statement. And that's when we signed Lyle Taylor, who'd been Colchester United's top scorer last season. So he'd come down from League Two. But it was a conscious decision we made, as much as anything from we still need that striker, as to we want to put the club on the map. We want to show people what we intend to do. We want to use this as a marketing tool. We want to get someone to come in that's been in the Football League that can tell us things we don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. So it was very much a conscious decision to do that, and we've not gone over budget on anything since then. So I think you do have that person on your shoulder sometimes saying you should do this, but we've done it in a way that we've been trying to keep the momentum going. So I was looking at some stuff last week again, and in terms of our crowd, if you look at the top 6 divisions in English football, the second biggest increase in crowd is Barnet, and they've increased their crowd by 36% this season. We've increased ours by 89%.
Wow.
So we've just been doing bits all the time. I'm constantly doing bits like this, interviews, whatever I can to talk about the club, and not just talk about it, but every time we're trying to sell something that we've done better. So me and Angelo are very aligned in a lot of things. We every day we're at the club, we're talking about, this is the worst day you're going to see this club, because tomorrow we're going to have done something a little bit better to improve it. And then the next day, this is the worst day you're going to see this club. And it's getting that story out there to the fans and letting them know we're desperate to improve, but taking them on the journey with us, making them feel part of it, because we can't do this on our own.
We will be talking about that other player at the end. That'll be the bit we say on a lighter note. Talking about bringing the fans with you, there's a couple of innovations that I'm really interested in that you set up. First of all, the monthly fan meetings, which my research indicates, by talking to a Chelmsford fan, have been very popular. Why did you start them, and how are they working?
So why I started, and when I was taking it over, so in the I'm first and foremost a fan, so I used to go to games anyway. So I'd see fans down there and we'd talk about stuff, and obviously as it got out that I was looking to buy the club, fans would approach me at pre-season games and start talking about stuff. And one thing that became very obvious, and I was actually told directly by one fan, because fans are not short on coming up and telling you what they think, was that there'd been no engagement from the previous owners for 7 years. Mm. And I remember standing there and saying, well, I can talk to you all day long. That's free. That's the one thing that doesn't cost me a penny at this club. I'll do that all day long. And so I just thought, there'd been a thing called Clarets for Change that was a protest group that were trying to get rid of the previous owners. And they would still come to games, but they would turn up at 3:00 so they didn't spend any money at the club. And they would leave on the final whistle so they didn't spend any money at the club. And I was desperate to get those people back on board, because they were the hardcore fans. And that's what we need. It's all about the fan base and the community. So I thought, well, if I just start talking to them, at least they'll, if they still don't like me, fine, then there's nothing I can do about that. But once they hear what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to do it, they might come back. So, we have a board meeting every first Monday of the month from 7:30 till God knows whatever time we finish. So I said, well, I'm going to be at the club those days. So every Monday, 6 till 7, I'll be up here and I'll stand here. And if no one turns up, no problem at all, because I'm going to be here anyway. But if people want to turn up and ask me a question, they can do so. So I've made a bit of a joke of it and saying, you can only ask me a question if you bought a beer, because we need the revenue. So they go and buy a drink, and they ask me all sorts of questions. And typically, I sort of prepare in advance mentally, thinking, they're going to ask about this. They're going to ask. And it's the most easy answer questions that they come up and ask me. But like, are you going to change the light bulb over there that's been broken for 2 weeks? And I'm like, not who's the next super signing you're going to sign, but I think they just like to know that we are talking about all these things. We're looking at all these things. We're open to having the conversation. We've changed a few things on the back of feedback from them. The first question I got asked was my favourite. So the very first fans forum. There's this one of our volunteers that does so much around the club, but he's been known to be a little bit opinionated. And he said, right, I've got a question. Yeah, we've heard all this stuff before about what you're going to do for the club, blah, 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 blah. How are you going to make us trust you today? And I was like, well, first of all, I haven't actually told you what I'm going to do for the club, so I don't know what you've heard before. But secondly, I said, I've got no intention of trying to make you trust me today. Trust doesn't work like that. Trust is built up over time. So I said, what I'm going to do is tell you things I intend to do, and then we can look back and see whether I've done them or not. And if I've done them, you'll trust me a little bit more. And if I haven't done them, you'll trust me a little bit less. But hopefully, over time, you'll trust me more. That's how trust works. And when we got to August this year, I did a year review. So normally they just ask me questions. I said, look, I'm going to do it slightly differently. I'm going to list all the things, all the highlights, and the challenges that we've had. And I listed all of these things that we've done at the club. And I just turned around and said, all right, Alan, first question's on me. Do you trust me anymore? and he just laughed and went, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. That's just off the back of that. Does it make it easier or harder that you're from Chelmsford?
I think probably the fans appreciate that I'm a local lad and I'm not just some guy coming in trying to buy a football club and they don't really know what my motives are. For me, it probably makes it a little bit harder because I put immense pressure on myself to succeed because it's my local town. But because it's my local team, I feel more attached to it, so I feel I have got more of a duty to succeed.
And tell us about this new third kit as well.
Yeah, so we, I've been looking at football. I've been involved with football for being a very average to poor player to a manager to a coach to a captain for years, and I've always tried to take on board things. So when I was at university as club captain, we were the first side in London to have a shirt sponsor. We were the first side in London to have a UEFA coach. I've always looked at what we can do differently, and I remember going to watch Liverpool Alaves. I think it was 2002 in the UEFA Cup final when I think it was like the 5-4 game. My memory's crap for things like that, but I think it was 5-4, and the Alaves fans, there was such a small group of them that Alaves had sewn all of their season ticket holders' names onto the kit for the final. And I just thought that was a fantastic thing to do for the fans to repay that sort of loyalty and literally support the club. So last year I took over, and by the time I'd taken over, a lot of things were already in place for the season. So the budget had been set, the kit had been sorted. So this year we came up with a brand new home kit, brand new away kit. And I said, right, I'm going to do a third team kit. Any season ticket holder that's bought a season ticket by this date gets their name embroidered onto the shirt, or printed onto the shirt. So we doubled the amount of season ticket holders we've got, which was great. And we've got this third team kit that will be launched by the end of November. That's got every single season ticket holder's name on it.
Be launched just in time for Christmas, you say?
That's coincidence.
Yeah. I'd also, I'm talking about a sample.
To be fair, we've pre-ordered. We've pre-ordered something like 300 or 400 of them already that people have ordered. So yeah.
When I say I've been talking to Chelmsford fans, I'm talking about a sample of one Chelmsford fan. And
I know them? I'll have to. If this is good or bad, I'll have to find.
No. This is. No. Seriously, she couldn't be more impressed with what's happening. I mean, she's 2 generations back, her parents and her grandparents are Chelmsford fans. But you seem to have as much of a focus on the women's game and the academy as you do on the first team, which by all accounts is a new development for the club as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely open and honest. When I bought the club, it was I want to take the first team to the Premier League. That was the goal. And then you realise there's actually a lot more involved with football than you first thought. And I didn't know we had the CCFC Foundation when I bought the club. So we have a charitable foundation that does amazing stuff that helps kids that get free school dinners in school time. They don't get that in the school holidays. So we put on football camps for them and they get free food and stuff. So you don't know all of this stuff. Well, maybe you do if you buy it normally, but when you don't get due diligence, you don't know all of this stuff. And what I didn't know was that our women's team and our youth team weren't even affiliated to the club. They just used the badge. And they'd even changed the badge from Chelmsford City to Chelmsford City Women's and Chelmsford City Youth so that the club couldn't try and take control of them. And I was like, that's just crazy. Why wouldn't we all be under one umbrella?
Yeah.
And when it was announced I was buying the club, one of the women's teams sent me a link to a documentary called The False Nine that they'd had made. And whether I was just a bit emotional that I'd finally bought the club or buying the club or whether it was literally the documentary, but I was sitting there in tears watching this thinking, Christ, you go back to, does it put more pressure on us being a local lad? I was like, I've got such a responsibility now. There's women playing football here that have mental health issues, and this is their lifeline. And I've since found out, we've got the walking team and the disability team, and the walking team have if you've had prostate cancer or you've got prostate cancer, you can wear stripy socks to signify that, so other people that have got it can come and talk to you. And it's like, this isn't just about getting a football team into the Premier League. This is about doing something really good in the community and helping out. So I was really keen that I wanted to get both of them back involved as an official capacity. So I've been working with the women's team for a year, trying to, as I say, build that trust up and just doing little bits and helping them out. And I asked them for a list of short, medium, and long-term goals that would make them a better team and help the club. And one of the long-term goals was we'd love to be able to play all our home games at Melbourne Park at the Dunmo Community Stadium. So I started digging into why they didn't, and it was literally they play on a Sunday. So the men's team plays Saturday, and a midweek game has to be on a Monday because Athletics has it on a Tuesday, and the women's team play on a Sunday. So that the men didn't like them digging up the pitch when they played on a Sunday if they had a Monday game. So they let them play there on a Sunday if there was no Monday game, but not if there was a Monday game in case there was divots. And I said, is that literally the only reason? Women's team said yeah, men's team said yeah. I said, well, why don't we just pay a groundsman to come in on a Sunday night or a Monday morning so that that's not a problem? Does that solve all the problems? Yeah, that's fine. So we do that. So they now play all their home games. And that was a long-term goal for them to be able to do that. We sorted it in like a month worth of conversations. And it's just like, why wouldn't we be doing this? We got men and women both at step 6. Let's make this a competition now. Let's see how quick, who can get to the Premier League first, women or men. And if you ask me, it'll be the women by a mile because it's so much opportunity there.
This grounds person that you brought in, I'm going to assume it's a man. Is he really grumpy?
He's not actually. He's not.
That's unusual.
Yeah, no, he's good as gold. I mean, he is really good. He's funny enough, like a lot of this stuff. When I took over, a lot of these people were a bit grumpy, and then you find out they're all owed money, and you pay that money off, and they become less grumpy.
It's funny, that, isn't it?
So the council were, I wouldn't say they were against us in any means, but they were quite firm on certain decisions. And it turns out we owed them £250,000, and we paid that £250,000, and now they can't be more supportive. So it goes back to running these things properly. Mm-hmm. If we want people to help us, why don't we help them? It's a win-win, isn't it? Let's make it a win-win.
Talking of the ground, I understand you've had what a local newspaper called interesting conversations about moving to a new ground. Do you need to move to a new ground? What's the status? Do you own the ground yourself now, or are you renting it?
No, so I bought 60% of the football club,
right,
and that literally is the name and the license to play in the football league or in the National League. The clubhouse was owned the club had been split from one company into 6 different companies. You can work out why, particularly Kieran. And we've merged them into 3 companies, and I now own 60% of all 3. So I only got 6% of the clubhouse last month. So we've only just managed to do all of that for various different reasons. But we own a long-term lease on the clubhouse, and we don't own anything else. But we have a long-term rental agreement on the pitch to use it on a Saturday and a Monday, or a Wednesday or Friday, but we use it on a Monday. So yes, we would like a training ground. We're talking to Essex County Cricket about a centre of excellence with them. So we've got a really good partnership going with them. We'd love our own ground. We have had some interesting conversations, but like all of this, the grass isn't always greener, if you pardon the pun. We've got a club that's based just about in Chelmsford. It's on the outskirts, but it's in Chelmsford. If we get a new ground, it would be out of town. It's as simple as that. There's no space available in town. So we go from having an athletics track that the fans generally like, apart from the running track because you're sitting so far back, to a club that could be purpose built but it's out of town, so you can't walk to. So it's not definitely a quick win. Well, it's definitely not a quick win. We're talking 5 years at the earliest, but it's not necessarily a win-win, I don't think. So we're working with some architects. I've got one coming down tomorrow to look at what we can do in Chelmsford and to look at basically doing a feasibility report on do we stay or do we move. Even if we want to move, there's only certain various bits of land that might be available. There's nothing definite or concrete, so there's no quick sort of solution there.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son, Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault, a new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Ford was built on the belief that the world doesn't get to decide what you're capable of. You do. So ask yourself, can you or can't you? Can you load up a Ford F-150 and build your dream with sweat and steel? Can you chase thrills and conquer curves in a Mustang? Can you take a Bronco to where the map ends and adventure begins? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Ready, set, Ford.
Funnily enough, we were speaking to Harry Hugo, the owner of Farnham Town, a few weeks ago, who is in a similar conversation right now. But they've decided they want to keep the ground in the town. They think it's really important because they think that the rugby club moving out of town had an adverse effect financially, but also just kind of morally. But he's all right because he's got sites within the town that he can move to. So if you haven't, then sometimes that decision that has to be made. This is a decision that has to be made with the head, not the heart, isn't it?
It is, and 100%. I would rather stay where we are. The problem is we don't own that land, and there's also another tenant there in the athletics club that they'd like it for themselves. I'm sure it works quite nicely at the moment in that we work together. So we're looking at can we get stands built that concertina out over the track on a match day and go back in. We're looking at loads of different options, but I would most definitely rather stay in town because it feels as someone said, there's chimney pots around it. It feels like a proper football club, and it's in the most deprived part of Chelmsford, so it feels like we can do some good there. We can go into the schools there and help out, and not that you can't do that there, but if you're based there, it's a lot easier to do these things.
I'm interested in you saying the most deprived parts of Chelmsford because this is something that bugs me about. So, especially for our overseas listeners or some of our listeners in the north of England who assume that everywhere south of Birmingham is swimming in money, that it wouldn't occur to them that somewhere like Chelmsford has a deprived area in the same way that my family in Bradford all think that we live in Westminster in London. So I'm genuinely interested in you saying that and how that community aspect becomes even more important then, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And not in Chelmsford, but in Essex, Jaywick is I think for the last 4 or 5 years has been the most deprived area in the country.
Wow.
So Essex is affluent in a lot of places, but there's a lot of deprived areas, and Melbourne is the most deprived area in Chelmsford. When I got involved with the club back in COVID, when it was running out of money on another occasion, I went in and said, look, I wanted to get more involved in the club and learn how to run it for when it eventually, hopefully, happened. And I said to them, let me sponsor you. And they said, well, you can have the front of shirt. And I said, well, you've already got a front of shirt. You're just robbing Peter to pay Paul by doing that. What aren't you getting sponsored at the moment? And they said, well, we haven't got the stadium sponsored. So I said, well, we'll sponsor that, but let's sponsor it for Kids Inspire, the local charity here that help kids around here. So we called it the Inspire Stadium. And you talk about Kids Inspire. The reason that charity in Chelmsford is so big is because there are so many kids that need the help in there. And it's homelessness is a massive problem in Chelmsford. There's just not enough property, but there's a lot of kids that need help. They've just opened the Jeff Hurst School, Jeff Hurst Academy, literally 5-minute walk from the club, which is where Sir Jeff went to school, and or in the same areas where he went to school, and it's a school for kids that, as the headmistress said to me, it's a last chance saloon. They've been kicked out of every other school, and they've got whatever challenges at home and we went round there and we were like, what can we do to help? And the headmistress is showing you around, and you got 12-year-old girls just booting the wall, telling the headmistress to F off and stuff like that, and you think, well, one, that's pretty full on. But what's happened to that kid this morning to make her act like that and stuff? It's there's a lot of help needed in that area.
Mm. Before I ask you the traditional and predictable final question, let's come back to that flagship signing you were hoping to make. Is it true you tried to sign Andy Carroll?
It is true, yes. Yeah,
Wow.
it was, and it was all agreed. Literally, contracts were out. We were talking about a flagship signing for a while, and one of my friends who's also on the board of directors said to me, "What about Andy Carroll? He's out in France. It doesn't look like he's earned a lot of money from the papers. What you read in the papers." And I was just flying out. I'd just flown out to Spain. I was on a minibus going from the airport to La Manga. We were going out for a group of our 50ths. And I was like, he was texting me. I was like, yeah, but how would I get hold of him? And then I was like, actually, my mate on the bus here, his best mate, works at West Ham. So I literally reached out and said, can you give Andy Carroll my number? And within 24 hours, not even that, within 12 hours, Andy had messaged me and said, I hear you want to make me a very lucrative offer. And so I just replied and said, define lucrative. And we had a couple of phone calls, and he came round to my house and we sat in the garden for 3 hours, and I told him about what I was looking to do, and he told me what he was looking to do. And we got on really well, to be honest, really well. And I hadn't even really got Angelo, the manager, involved at this point. And I don't get involved with signings unless I'm asked to. That's not my area. A couple of them I've got involved with where they've just asked me to sell the dream a little bit when we've been getting players from a higher level. And I said to Ange, look, this Andy Carroll thing might actually happen. You should probably meet him to see if you want him or not first. So we had another 3-hour meeting around my house, me, Ange, and Andy. And when I first spoke to him in La Manga, I was like, how am I going to get an England international to sign for a National League South team? He's not playing wise. It's not going to entice him. So I said to him, look, would you like to come and sign for us, but also be director of football? So when you retire, you've got a pathway. And he was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting, actually. And when he came over to mine, we sat down and he was like, would you consider someone investing in the club? And I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. So he said, I've Googled it, and there's no player owners of clubs in the country that I can see, and I'd love to be the first one. And I was like, yeah, I love doing stuff like that, so let's do it. So we'd agreed he was going to buy, I think it was 10 or 15% of the club. He was going to be director of football. It was a 2-year deal. We'd agreed the salaries. We'd agreed everything. The lawyer, I'd paid 10 grand on legal fees. And then he went out to France to end his contract there. He had an agreement. If he got an offer back here, he could go. And they put out on social media before we'd signed the contracts that he sort of left the club by mutual consent. We literally had our clubhouse set up for the press conference. It was going to be the next day. And a couple of other clubs got wind of it, jumped on the bandwagon, and made him a better offer. And he ended up joining Dagenham.
Do you know what? By an amazing coincidence, we had a question on the pod we recorded this morning asking if there'd ever been a player who was part owner of a club.
Right.
So that's incredible. It's a shame. I would just like to have seen Angelo's face when you sidled up to him and said, you know those budgets we set?
Yeah.
That we said we'd never break? We might be breaking it with this one.
I'll be honest, we weren't. We'd figured in, we knew roughly what he was going to be, and then obviously as we refined that, we knew exactly what it was going to be, and that wouldn't have broken our budget.
Well, that's interesting.
It was within it. Yeah, it was. I won't disclose private information, but yeah, it certainly didn't break the budget.
Spencer, normally my final question is, as I say, very predictable. I was going to ask you about your ambitions and where you can take the club, but you've already told us that. So instead, I just want to ask one very simple question: are you enjoying yourself?
Yes. 99% of the time, yes. Like any football fan, I hate it when we lose. It literally ruins my weekend. And the only bit I don't enjoy sometimes is my own frustration that we're not doing stuff quicker. And occasionally, there's certain stuff you can't tell fans, and it frustrates me when they don't trust us. When we released one of our players a couple of weeks ago, just before the FA Cup game, and we were already a little bit thin on squad due to injuries and suspensions. And we released one of our players to go and sign for another club in our league, and the fans were like, "What are we doing?" What they didn't know is we already had his replacement lined up, and he, no disrespect to the player we got rid of, but the guy that we signed came on and scored in the FA Cup when we beat Braintree from the league above. So we knew what we were doing, but you can't tell them this. So it's like just one of the fans actually put on the forum, trust the process, and I just liked it. I won't comment, but I just liked it. It's like they don't always know what's going on behind the scenes, and you can't always tell them. We want to be as open and transparent as we can, but we also deliberately didn't want Braintree to know that we just signed a really good player that was probably going to be playing the next day. And so there was a little tweet went out. The signing was announced at 11 o'clock, and he scored at something like 12:40. So it was an hour and 40 after signing. We'd obviously signed him the day before, but the announcement hadn't gone out. So
it was on telly that game, wasn't it?
It was. That was on TNT. Yeah, that was amazing.
It's one of the things I love about English football is because I think it was before the Palace Brentford game, so we were all in the pub and the game was on telly, and a couple of Norwegian lads came into the pub for the first time, and we had to explain because first of all they seemed to think it was Chelsea, and so we had to point out it wasn't. So having to explain to them that it was Cheltenham versus Braintree, and it was a local derby, and it was on telly, and they just thought it was brilliant. And then we all watched the game then as well. It was great. It was cracking.
Well, when we found out we were on telly, I thought it would be a case of, they bring one camera down, and it was, we got told we got 50 grand. And I was like, all right, well, we'll have to use some of that to build a scaffold tower for them to put the camera on. And it turns out, no, we get 50 grand, and then they come down and build about 5 scaffold towers. They brought 9 cameras down, 80 crew down. It's like, wow. So things like that, it's the price of football podcast. We've kept our season tickets and our match day tickets the same from the year before I took over. We froze them last year and we froze them again this year, and they've actually gone down because the admin on the online site is cheaper. So our ticket price has gone down. So it's hard for us to make money. And we normally make probably 15 grand maybe revenue on a match day. That day made us probably about £160,000 with our TV money, our prize money for winning, the sponsorship from the FA. The bar take was double what it normally is, even though you can't drink in front of the pitch for an FA Cup game. So things like that are just so crucial for football clubs. But you can't rely on it.
No, Spencer, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been a real insight into, I nearly said the journey word then. I can't stand the journey word. I shout every time.
We haven't even mentioned roller coaster yet either.
We haven't mentioned roller coaster. Every time Claudia Winkleman says the word journey, I shout at the TV screen and then text my mate who's the writer to say, stop using that journey word for the love of God. But it's been fascinating. And also, really interesting talking to my friend who's a Chelmsford fan, just to see the passion and the enthusiasm being rekindled, because trust me, it hasn't been there for a few years. So good luck with the rest of this season, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on down there.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You can't help but be carried away by his enthusiasm, Kieran, and he seems to know exactly what he's doing. There's a couple of things, though, I noticed raised your eyebrows. The first one, when Spencer said the club was broken into 6 separate companies when he bought it, and he said you would explain why. Now, that you need to do that, Kieran, because I've been racking my brains in the 15 seconds since we finished the last pod and started doing this intro. We only did the interview 10 minutes before we started recording the last pod, so it's all very confusing. But why did he have a wry smile on his face when he said it's broken into 6 different companies?
Well, as an accountant, what's my favourite 3-letter word ending in the word X?
Lax?
Almost.
All right. Tax, okay.
Tax, yes. So what happens is if you set up companies, you can sell off different elements of them and make profits in some and losses in other, or you can sell off them in bits over a period of time. So yes, there are potential tax benefits of setting up separate companies, and then that's why we see it. If you take a look at Mike Ashley, for example, there were about 7 or 8 Newcastle companies, and I think every single branch of Sports Direct is set up as a separate company. There are often tax benefits in doing so, all perfectly within the rules, it has to be said.
Also, that amazing coincidence that we had literally, when we recorded the questions pod, minutes before we spoke to Spencer, and one of the questions was about has a player ever been a part owner of a club? And lo and behold, here was Spencer talking about that. But there's two things I was particularly interested in, Kieran. This idea of the success of the business sometimes running ahead of the success of the football club, which is great. It seems perfectly sensible. You get the business ready for when the club is successful. But I suppose sometimes that could come with frustration if the success on the pitch it takes its sweet time catching up with the success as a business.
That's right. You've got this glib saying in the world of finance: "Build it, and they will come," and therefore improving facilities, expanding the stadium, finding other resources which the club can use to generate revenue going forwards. These are all sensible. Now, the trouble with that is none of us fell in love with football because it was a sensible thing to do. In fact, it was probably, in many respects, the dumbest decision that many of us have made for our lives. Because, let's face it, the way that football dominates our mood at times is disproportionate to the logic that goes behind it. So I think I absolutely understand what Spencer is doing and saying. I think the financial results, and I've got Chelmsford's accounts in front of me here. For that first year, to turn it from a loss-making club into a profit-making club, and doing all of the things which do make sense in terms of first of all building up a relationship, and as you rightly said, you don't create trust in a day, but by building up a relationship, by being open, by engaging with people, by giving people manifesto promises and delivering on them. That's a way that you do get the benefit of that, and then fans will give you the benefit of the doubt when the results aren't quite so poor. So I understand that creating the infrastructure, it's a boring word, to be able to deal with the success when it arrives is certainly a way of achieving long-term success, which is an issue in a world which is full of short-term gratification. Which is an inconsistency between the two.
And finally, Kieran, watching your face and your body language as Spencer described the fact that he bought the club without due diligence was like watching a Marcel Marceau masterclass. He went through many, many emotions as this intelligent businessman. It just said, well, no, just in the end, we thought, well, how bad could it be? And we clearly, your body language and your facial expressions indicated that's not an approach you would normally take. In fact, you almost gave a silent cheer when Spencer said that his solicitors told him to run away as fast as he possibly could.
Yeah, you don't do these things unless you check all of the background. So to buy a business, would you buy a house without a survey? Would you buy a used car without taking a look at it? It's absolutely crazy because you don't know what are the ramifications. And I do think that I've got nothing but admiration for Spencer, but I would always put head ahead of heart when making such a financial commitment.
Don't forget you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get access to our full back catalogue, ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and much, much more. So you just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. And don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and you can find us on YouTube. We will be back on, I don't know when people are listening. The club members will be listening to it. We'll be back. We'll be back. Let's put it like that. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The Price of Football. The Price of Football.